Mitchell again, great coach. Warple went back. Bert Jones released to Josh Ward. Could this be his first goal in the AFL? Josh Ward, he's got it. Lynch just caught at the back that time. Running onto it, Wingard in splendid isolation goes bang, and they're back in front. Boost is dangerous. He's hard to tackle. He's impossible to tackle. He's too good, Luke Boost. Moore only knows one way. They shovel it forward. Newcomb. There's a chance for Scotty's boy. The gas from the pocket. First goal in AFL football. It's Lewis. Wow.
Taking it is Gilroy and streaming ahead. Eileen Gilroy opens up the angle and the Hawks are in front. The Hawks finally get that winning feeling.
Lewis is looking for five straight. That bang. This is ridiculous. Kuzinski from behind, couldn't take it, right by Impey. He's been dangerous, had a few looks, didn't need another. Mitch Lewis is a dangerous one-on-one play. Well done, McKenzie. Oh, look at the pick-up. Look at the steal, the Irishman's edge. That was outstanding. McAvoy delayed the hand pass until Day in full stride. And isn't he excited by it? Walker, back to Parnell. Nice build-up. Can they make it count? Smith, he'll be caught. Gnashed his teeth and mowed him down. Bruce wobbles it forward. Lewis, all on his own, can walk in and seal the deal.
What a year it was, Hawks fans. Sam Mitchell's first exciting year as senior coach, the introduction of our AFLW side, the highs, the lows, and no shortage of talking points as we close out the year with one final episode, our 2022 in review. In this special edition of the show, we'll also be casting an eye on next year's fixture, and we're excited to bring you our chat with a very special guest, Hawthorn's own Josh Ward. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nick Mason, and welcome as always to my co-host Tiz. It's been a big year, mate, and it was a big night last night, an eventful AGM.
Couldn't decide whether it was going to be pantomime or pitchforks or what was going to happen. There's a bit of both in the end. We've got a new president, Andy Gowers, and newly elected to the board, James Merlino, and re-elected to the board, Anne-Marie Palliser and Katie Hudson. Incredible night, really.
Well, it was an occasion that promised, a bit of tension, a bit of fireworks maybe, and it sort of delivered in that respect.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's resulted in two changes. Andy Gowers now president and James Merlino on the board.
Well, you say two, there's been a third.
Well, yes. Apparently last night, Richie Vandenberg approached Andy in the bar where we were in attendance, trying to talk to Sammy about our interview tonight. But apparently approached Andy and said he would be resigning, and that has left a vacancy on the board. Now, what they do with that, I know the old leaders of the board were keen to get some legal expertise back onto the board, as we had with Peter Nankerville. So there are a lot of lawyers around, Nick, but I'm sure that will be probably the top priority, because I would imagine that Andy Gowers takes over the portfolio that Vandenberg had, don't you?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. I feel like we do need to focus on Andy Gowers. That was the headline grabber, his appointment, his election rather, as president. AGM stood for Andy Gowers' moment, Tiz, and what a moment it was. He went up against the machine. Let's make no mistake about that, because it was a machine. He was going up against the club, and he's pulled out a very, famous victory, frankly.
Yeah, a very good candidate, a very disciplined candidate, and attracted a lot of fans that know him in the past, know the character of the man, liked what he stood for, returning to an approach where members are the key aspect of the club. And, I think it'll be a noticeable change.
There are a lot of things, for all the talk about Jeff Kennett and his tenure, there are a lot of things he actually did kind of well. He did serve the club well in many different respects, and certainly the people he appointed did the same. But ultimately, Gowers was running on a platform that was seeking to inspire people to believe in change. It's all well and good, the successes that we've had, but we can be better. We can be different and do things differently around this club. And it was his challenge to get people to believe in that, and he did.
And so it's up to him to deliver. First things first, he's got to get through this period of change and the rocking of the boat, and it was quite obvious sitting in the hall how disgruntled Vandenberg was. It wasn't obvious that anyone else was particularly had their nose out of joint, but everyone will have to recalibrate because these are volunteer positions, so there may be other people who decide that this isn't for them.
Yeah, don't expect this to be over just yet, is what I would warn supporters. That there could be a little bit more to play out with this. Indeed, in terms of Gower's challenge from here, he's promoted ahead of time. He wanted to have a summit between a lot of the key figures of Hawthorn and members. Now, just how that's going to look and what sort of form it takes, it remains to be seen, but that's something that I'm all for. I very much look forward to that.
Let's not gloss over the fact that two great servants and women were returned to the board whose positions were under threat.
Yeah, this was a big win for diversity. It's very good for the club.
I believe they all knew a day out because apparently it hit Channel 9 News as we sat down in our seats at the AGM, Nick, that what the results were. So it all became a little bit... I mean, they announced the results at the AGM about an hour into proceedings, and it was all old news.
That's right, yeah. It spread like wildfire, and I believe, from my vantage point, glued to my screen before the event even began, Stephen Quartermain was right out of the blocks. He was one of the first to have it known and to break the news, and then Channel 9, and then us, and then Tom Brown got in, so...
You needed a longer pause between Hawk Talk Pod putting it out there and Tom Brown. He was making a nuisance of himself, and he didn't even get the scoop that you were the first to sign on at the AGM, Nick. I thought that would have been a lead story.
What a nerd. What a dork. I was legitimately the first one to approach the desk and... because of the registration and everything, and get my little wristband, and oh my God.
Yeah, no, a big thrill for you, Nick.
Let the records show that I was first in.
No, but that's, it was a good night for the club. It's a bit of, well, what we've had going on the field, a reblooding, and there'll be a change in the administration as well. And they've got some huge tasks. They've got the KCC, they've got the performance of the club, they've got getting a better fixture for members. They've got to handle our exit from Tassie. All this stuff is in the offing. So, yeah, big moments.
Well, Hawks for change indeed. They wanted change, and that's what the club's dealing with. We're in a period of renewal, rebirth, and renegotiating a lot around the club. And what an exciting time. I know that the club has its critics, and people are a bit down on Hawthorn right now in terms of just how we're going to perform on field, and is the off field a shambles too? But I don't know. I'm a little bit more optimistic than that personally.
And I know there'll be people out there feeling that it's a hostile takeover, but Andy Gowers is really one of the fold, and I don't think that there's going to be a schism within the club as a result of this. Well, I hope not, anyway.
Even if you listen to our interview with Gowers, it's abundantly clear. Well, both of our interviews, in fact, because we've spoken to him twice on this program now. It's abundantly clear how much heart he has and how much passion he has for this football club. You can really believe him when he speaks of his commitment to doing the absolute best he can for the Hawthorn Football Club. So as far as I'm concerned, with that in mind, we're in a good position.
And I thought it was a little bit, clumsy, the way they didn't have a moment to thank Peter and another moment to thank Jeff, and it fell upon Jeff to thank Peter, and then at the end, Hawthorn philanthropist Jeff Harris took to the floor and thanked Jeff for his impact on the club. And I think in future that needs to be better set out, because they would have known the results earlier, and certainly they knew that this was Kenneth's last AGM, and I felt that could have been better handled.
Yeah, look, it took Jeff Harris to really tie a bow on things, and you needed to have someone to acknowledge Nankivell's service. He came in second place, as Jeff would put it. We'll get to that in a moment. He came in second place on this occasion, but 8 years of service, it deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated. And the same goes for Jeff, who I understand is a very polarising figure. Whether you like him or loathe him, you can't deny that he's had a huge impact on this club positively.
Yes, and even the detractors last night had to acknowledge his early stint from 2005 was dramatically impacted our footy club.
Indeed.
And took it from a bit of a basket case. That was a fantastic moment Jeff told us about, where Fagan and Clarkson were in a mid-year review of how they're going on field, and Kennett just threw it at the wall and said, "This is our year, this is our chance. You got to aim for the premiership." And I can understand how that would have been quite hard to swallow at that time.
Well, it all worked out in the end, didn't it?
It worked out beautifully. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hearing that.
Exactly. Of course, it must be noted that, Jeff was Jeff right to the end, wasn't he?
Oh, yes. True to form.
He had to have the last word. My favourite Jeffism from last night, as I sort of intimated before, was the fact that it's not about winning or losing in Jeff's eyes. There's winning and then coming second place. Second place of 2.
That's the result each week. You either win or you come second place.
That's right. I just thought that was brilliant. And look, it was a very entertaining evening, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that was nothing that Bob Keddy would even let enter his head. He was all about winning, and it was great to see him inducted as a life member, as well as Russell Marshall, who used to manage Glen Ferry, and he had more. It felt like he had more stories that he wanted to get out there, but perhaps he wasn't prepared to release the expurgated version. Is that the right word? Where you just take out and make it like it needed a lot of editing. Let's just put it that way. But his talk about gold running through the veins was something special, because he just that commitment to the club he had.
They were both uniquely charismatic people, weren't they? Both uniquely charismatic speakers, and hearing their stories of days gone by and how they both had massive contributions to the club in their respective ways. It was really cool. It was one of the highlights of the evening for mine. We also had the Cheer Squad Awards, which went to Jai Newcomb and Tilly Lucas-Rod. No surprises there. No,
it was really good to see the whole squad there, the AFLW and the boys, and it's just a lot of players now, isn't it? No wonder they didn't bother to introduce them individually this year.
Yeah, we didn't have interviews like that. What did you note around the room? One of the things that caught my eye was Jack O'Sullivan being so tiny.
He needs a good feed, that boy.
I imagine he will cause so many headaches for defenders when he just zips by them, and he's going to be an annoying gnat.
Well, his agility is off the charts, and that's what you want. He's been injured a fair bit, but you can probably see why. He's just a little bit slight.
Got to hit the gym at Bunjil-Bogora.
And then Lloyd Meek was a dominating presence, and of course, standing above everybody was Reeves. But we shouldn't skim over the presentation of the finances, which were excellent, and we are in a very healthy position, and something to really build on, and it sort of underlines why everybody's so forward looking at that AGM last night.
Well, you can't sell pokies every year; they're gone now. So, got to work out just how we're going to move forward with that.
And speaking of moving forward, we begin looking backward.
That's right. This is, after all, our 2022 in review. And, what a year it was, mate. It was exciting, certainly. I think the team performed a bit above my expectations.
Certainly early. Expectations went through the roof. We were playing beautiful football. We beat the eventual premiers. We were looking flash. We had the old and the new bonding. It was a fascinating time because Sammy had an obvious impact. And even last night, you can see the psychology of the group is still with him.
Absolutely. That round 2 win against Port Adelaide, where you just got the sense that, Sammy's got this machine pairing very nicely. Because we were to know what kind of funk Port Adelaide were in. It would take them a while to get themselves out of that. But at the time, that was massive. Hugely encouraging for the group and supporters.
Daring, and it's got dash, and it was incredible to watch for us because we were just looking for improvement. And there we were rubbing Port Adelaide's nose in it. It was great.
Most unexpected and most delightful. Hitting Mitch Lewis on the lead for 5 goals. Just what a night. What an evening it was. Let's talk about our really pleasing wins of 2022. You mentioned one before, and it will come up again later in our chat with Josh. Geelong at the MCG for mine. The euphoria that came with that win, and my boy Mitch getting out the back into space, kicking the sealer. It can't get better than that for me this year.
It was one of those days where you go to the G and you're thinking, we couldn't, could we? And we bloody did. It was great.
If you remember, Tiz, we were on from the start.
Yeah.
It took us about 20 seconds to get the ball inside 50 and have a shot on goal. And we had a very strong first quarter. I still remember fondly Dylan Moore taking down the eventual Norm Smith medalist, Isaac Smith, on the boundary, and then slotting the goal, if you don't mind. That was a hell of a game.
We did play pretty well against the Swans for 3 quarters too.
Yeah.
Eventual grand finalist. That was the following week after having played Geelong on the Easter Monday. So, there's a lot of potential in this squad, and you could see them drift off at the end of the year, but yeah, that Geelong win is just up in lights. That's what you'll remember from this year.
I also have a soft spot for our win in Tassie against the Suns, which I know many people listening to this won't think that's a particularly remarkable victory, aside from perhaps celebrating Ben McAvoy that game. But for me, I was down in Tassie with my dad, and I just thought it was really nice to get the win. It was a nice little weekend away, and I'll always remember that fondly.
And then, of course, in the AFLW, it's quite obviously the Swans. That was an incredible result.
Climbed off the canvas to get a massive comeback win. The excitement, the feeling on the final siren, literally, well, I speak for myself, but I know other people were jumping around too. It was magnificent. I've spoken about this before, seeing the Race sisters on the fence as the players came to the fence to greet them. They were just so proud. Like, so much had gone into this team, this club, getting us an AFLW side, investing in women's footy. It was just a moment that really packed a punch and really hit your heart in quite a remarkable way. The other win I want to make a note of, as far as the AFLW goes, is the very next week against the Eagles down at Skybus Stadium. And you know what? In terms of the anatomy of the game, so to speak, it did seem to take a very similar form in terms of how we started out playing that game. But if you watched closely, you could tell that the team had learned. The scoreline looked similar, but there was just something different, and you really got a lot more confidence that wasn't there with the Sydney game. You got the confidence that they're in this, they're up for this fight. And lo and behold, they did come back and they eked out a sensational win. Another very close contest. And I was very pleased to be on hand for that one as well.
Now, we've listed our worst results, and it's just one, really.
You can't look past Essendon at Marvel Stadium.
It looked like everything was going right that day, and then nothing went right.
I've spoken of this before. I remember distinctly where I was sitting on the tram on the way to that game, and reading that Essendon had another few outs. And I did think to myself, I remember it quite clearly, I'm suspicious of how much seems to be going our way on paper. I don't like it. I don't appreciate how this is being built up. It just had miracle win for Essendon written all over it. I could see the headlines the next day. It was uncomfortable for me. And so when the result happened, I was like, yep, there that is. That was not fun.
Now, your top 3 AFL players for Hawthorn this year. Come on. Now, there's obviously one, a bloke that decided that this was going to be his year early on.
Yeah, match winner Mitch Lewis. It's exactly what I'd hoped for Big Mitch heading into 2022, and it's fair to say he delivered and then some, and he would have gone on with it too if it wasn't for injury and the setbacks towards the latter half of the year. What is there left to say? Massively impressive. He's gone to the next level, and I mean, I was already a big Mitch Lewis fan. Everyone that listens to the podcast knows that. He's my guy, and it was just such a joy to see him take that next step.
It really was. Like, he's promised so much, and there's been a heap of expectation on him. And I just feel like perhaps Cozzie's in a similar position for next year.
That's the hope, certainly, yeah. I mean, Mitch Lewis, contested marking was there. That's a big tick. The accuracy was there. Clutch moments, he had those. Big bags of goals, he had a few of those too. It just
Consistent scoring, but also, apart from all that roar that he gave whenever he kicked a goal.
exactly loves a goal. He announced himself to the competition, and I dare say, Tiz, we are a far cry from Mitch Lewis being a pick 76 back end of the draft joke that no one took seriously to begin with. We are a far cry from that, and it's great to see.
Now, you had Mitch Lewis ahead of John Newcomb and then Dylan Moore,
Yes, yep.
completely omitting our best player for the year, James Sicily.
I was very conscious of this, and I thought you would bring it up. Yeah,
Ridiculous number of rebound 50s, as did Scrimshaw. He had some incredible, certain matches. He had incredible stats for rebounds, and then I had Dylan Moore second for watchability and his ability to play mid, forward, kick a goal every game. His link-up play with Gunston and Bruce was excellent as well. And then just the raw talent of John Newcomb as you had him in your top three.
Yeah, well, John Newcomb's all heart, isn't he? The sheer contested beast that is John Newcomb is just so enjoyable to watch. You want to see players like that. As a fan, he's it's no wonder he's a fan favourite. His desperation and hunger is on show every week and has been since game one. Fantastic. And he inherits the number 3, of course, which we haven't got to jumper numbers this pod.
No, we haven't got to jumper numbers yet, but the 3 fits. I mean, ever since he started playing, even with the 44. I love the 44, fantastic. But the 3, I thought that was his destiny. He just needs to lose a little bit of the hair on the top.
Extremely watchable is John Newcomb. As you said, for Dylan Moore, I wholeheartedly agree with that assessment too. Dylan Moore's evolution, his continued evolution towards being a midfielder is great to see. He's easily best 22 these days and is such an impactful player that I just enjoy watching him. And I do need to address for myself, James Sicily is obviously a star of this side. He is a star of the comp.
No, mate, it's past. The ball gone through to the back now, you can't get it.
Okay. He wasn't in my top 3 of my favourites for Hawthorn, but...
Shocking.
Yeah, I know. I'll live with that.
I hope you did better with the AFLW. How did you go?
Our top 3 AFLW players, I do believe that these 3 made up the top 3 of the best and fairest, so I've covered my bases there. I'm a big Aileen Gilroy fan. I really love her pace and her skill. She's a dangerous player. Usually, when she's involved, we score. So I think she's excellent. Jasmine Fleming, a bit the same. I love when Fleming breaks free of a pack and gets on a run. And for her age, the level of talent, the ceiling here is insane.
So she's 17 as we speak, right?
I think she might have just turned 18.
Okay, but played the season at the age of 17, and that is completely remarkable. And that is why she's my number 1, Nick.
Okay, fair enough.
She's my number 1. Then it's Lucas Rod. And then Lucy Wales, who was incredible after we had so much talent in the ruck just go by the wayside early on in the season.
Yeah, Lucy Wales certainly deserves a nod for her efforts this year. Coming from Casey VFLW, and being effectively forced to announce herself. But it's the way she did it. She had so much responsibility suddenly heaped on her, and she became such a formidable force in the ruck and was a huge contributor to our wins, especially.
Now, who was most surprising this year, Nick? You were surprised by Mitch Lewis, let's face it. I mean, you've always had expectations, but you didn't expect that.
No, I'd certainly hoped for it, but I didn't quite... I wouldn't have put money on it, put it that way. Harry Morrison, I think, was really impressive.
From the same draft, taken 2 picks earlier, Harry Morrison had a delightful year. That was very consistent.
It took a while to cotton on to what was happening there with his year, but slowly but surely you developed a picture of this is a very nice year from Harry. This is a career best outing. The games that he played in 2022. Very consistent, very good user of the footy. He had a bit of scoreboard impact as well. He was a quiet achiever, but a reliable cog in Hawthorn's machine.
I know you've got him listed as well, but Finn McGuinness, the man that uprooted the Melbourne Charge to a double, is was unlucky not to be included in my top 3 AFL players for this year. But he did surprise me. Sammy was just trying to get him some game time on the G a couple of times, but then he found his role and he even kicked important goals. So he has a magnificent frame on him, and I'm very excited for what he's going to do in 2023, because there's going to be a lot more expectation and certainly workload fall on Finn.
The function of Finn Maginness in this side is very clear. That is something that we could not have said a little while ago. But that, you're so right in saying that Melbourne game was the big turning point where he blanketed Ed Langdon, which players had struggled with. Finn was by far the most effective at doing that, and that was very telling, because he went on to have a ripper rest of the season, playing that exact kind of role, nullifying, and you could look at the numbers from week to week. Finn's opponents simply didn't enjoy any freedom.
The other bloke that impressed me, and he at Box Hill, and then he eventually got called up to the seniors, Butler. Very, very good-looking player.
Butler's an interesting one. I feel like we haven't seen anything just yet. Yeah, but you seem quite bullish on him.
I am, because he's got a certain vision that not many players possess that I really enjoy about his game. In terms of the AFLW, though, Akesh was the one that surprised me.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. I'd agree with that as well, mostly because I had a pigeonholed as a defender, and then to revitalise her season, moving up to a wing and becoming a very important link-up player and playing a part in creating a lot for this side, I would say Jess Duffin as well for me. A bit of the same, actually. I mean, I also had her slated as purely a defender, and then, Beck Goddard had worked out that as such a good reader of the footy, it would be a massive benefit to the side to have her in the forward line and clunk some marks, and with the wind and so forth. And it worked a treat. It executed masterfully as a plan, and Duffin went on to be a star of the forward line for the rest of the season, playing while pregnant. Thank you very much. Absolutely absurd. She was a real surprise packet, and what a season.
Yeah, I'm still not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. But anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Now we move on to the most underwhelming. And do we have to do this?
Well, we've got to call it as we see it, mate. It's a year in review. It can't all be A-pluses and gold stars.
Well, these blokes, unquestionably, would have been frustrated for the majority of their season. You've nominated Worpel and Wingard. I've nominated DGB and Worpel purely because I give Wingard, he's just never on the park. So I can't be underwhelmed if he's not playing. But these blokes played, and I was tremendously underwhelmed at times. But DGB showed a lot late.
This is not to write any of these guys off. Far from it.
Oh God, no. We don't want to do that. But these guys, they had questions asked. I mean, DGB was dropped to seconds, as was Worpel, and I fully expect both of those guys to put their hand up for a place next year in the best 22. I see them as integral to a tilt in 3 years.
Yeah, so do I. And I think when it comes to Worpel, his year was ended at a really unfortunate time where you felt like he was just on the precipice of recapturing that confidence that we hadn't seen all year. And then all of a sudden he's sidelined, and that's the end of his 2022. It was a cruel way to end things. It would have restored faith in a lot of supporters' eyes, I think, and it was taken away from him.
Yeah, and I think DGB was asked to do too much early on, and then he came back with a bit more confidence after it had been really rattled, and started to look like the player we know he can be. Now, it's going to be of no surprise that your favourite goal, Nick, was
Mitch Lewis out the back against Geelong. Couldn't be anything else.
Mine, for reasons of, artistic beauty, was the goal against Collingwood that's finally a team goal that's finished off by Connor McDonald. A bit of the old, you just cannot be dominated if you play footy like that.
I know exactly the goal you're talking about, and it's a terrific one, absolutely. It's a fine choice.
Up the guts and no erring on the kick that went straight through. Just loved it. And if they do that once a week, we ain't losing many.
And when it comes to the AFLW, my favourite goal, and I believe it's yours as well, it has to be Aileen Gilroy. The link-up play from half-back to put us in front and ultimately help us win our first ever AFLW game. That was as exciting as it gets.
Not just that, but the celebration just underlined how good that goal was.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a bit of a theme here, Nick. Do you have a favourite player, mate? Favourite mark, Mitch Lewis against St Kilda. I don't even remember it.
Oh, it was massive. You can't take this one away from me. If you don't have this in your favourite marks, I don't know what you're watching.
And Dylan Moore, which was also an excellent mark against Sydney. Now, I've gone for Frost.
Yeah, you've gone down to Lonnie against Brisbane, where Frost soared over the competition.
The entire Brisbane side, I will have you know. The pack was that big. And then, of course, slotted it. So, you don't do better than that. Especially when you're just thrown up there because Sam had run out of ideas. So,
well, who knows what we'll see in 2023. Let's focus on the guys that we're most excited to watch next season. I had no shortage of names for this one, Tiz. I almost couldn't stop listing the players I'm looking forward to seeing. I'll run through them. Amon, of course. I mean, huge gun recruit who could be our star wingman, could be the best that we've had in that position for years. Will Day, we've heard a bit about the club's intent to maybe run him through the midfield. I'm excited to see how that goes, that evolution. Meek looks like he could be a very, very promising ruckman and maybe even damaging going forward too. He could be a great target for us. Connor McDonald in his second year, I'm very bullish about Connor McDonald. I really enjoyed what I saw this year. Weddle's athletic profile and the fact that he just took out the time trial, I'm not sure where they're going to play him. They could start him at half-back. He's very comfortable as a defender so far. But the sky's the limit with Josh Weddle. He's such an athletic freak. The profile he's got is insane. Look forward to seeing what he can do. Tyler Brockman, robbed of a 2022. We are still looking for that gun small forward that can terrorise defenders, and he has to be in the frame for that. When we have seen him, he's been enormously exciting. Henry Hostwaite, purely for his size. We've heard that he's been run through the midfield. I look forward to seeing how that looks. A little bit of the Connor Nashes about him, mate. And, of course, Bailey McDonald, purely for the sheer speed, if I'm honest.
Well, it's just the whole midfield contingent for me, because it's just going to be so shaken up. There's going to be so many different bodies going through there. We're going to be very unpredictable to the opposition and totally unpredictable to me in the stands, I would imagine. So it'll be very exciting. But Josh Ward, you could see his elite status in those first couple of rounds. And I just want to see him under Lloyd Meek. I want to see him, Reeves tapping it down to him. I want to see them getting their craft going together because he takes good options. And then if you're bringing in Connor McDonald as well, and I know they're both very young, but that's what's going to bring us to the next premiership. And there's some real belief. I mean, Newcomb as well, like with the three on his back, how's he going to look with that going? That's going to be a great moment to see that three dashing away with the ball again.
Speaking of Josh Ward, ahead of our chat with him later, I was researching his stats, and what do you reckon his average disposals was in the end for 2022?
Oh, so it's about 20?
Just about bang on, 19 or so.
He really improved his ability to get touches.
Yeah, towards the end, no problem finding the footy.
I imagine those first couple of games, although they were wins, was more about getting the feel of being out there and knowing what it's about.
Both for him and Connor McDonald, who debuted at the same time, and it was interesting to look at their trajectory and how they were used differently to one another. And for a number of weeks early on, they sort of both hovered around that sort of 10-touch mark, and then obviously Wardy became more of a pure midfielder, and that accumulation really came into focus, which is great.
There's just one bloke I want to mention before we move on, and that's Max Lynch, who had moments of brilliance amid moments of extremely poor luck. We're talking bee stings, COVID tests, everything. So, Max Lynch, even though the club's recruited to really make it hard for him to make the team, he could do anything. He's an amazingly talented athlete.
Well, it's going to be a fight for him, but that's the point. It should be a fight for positions all across the list. And I kind of think we have that, to be honest. It's where you want to be for a rebuild. You got to work out the pieces that are going to take you forward. You need to have options when you're rebuilding, and that's exactly what we have.
Now, in terms of the AFLW, Talia Fellows is someone that I thought, oh my goodness, she could change the game. She was that good at points. Just 5-minute bursts where she looked like no one could touch her.
Yeah, the firepower was on show, wasn't it? A massive improver from even the VFLW, but then taking her craft to the AFLW. She took enormous strides in her career. Jasmine Fleming is another one that, I dare say we're both excited by. For reasons we've already covered. She's a joy to watch. And for me, Oni McDonough, who's quite new to the game of AFL, relatively speaking, and I thought she started to put together some really strong performances.
Absolutely, she did. The timing for leads, taking marks that are under pressure and in the corridor as well, which probably an ill-advised option to try and hit up, but she took the marks and she controlled that footy. And and we move on to the people who have pressure on them in 2023, and obviously the blokes we mentioned before, Warple and Wingard and DGB. You've also included Morris and Seamus Mitchell, who made it back onto the list at the very last gasp.
Yeah, important to note that there's pressure and there's pressure. So there's different stories for each of these guys. I'd say in the case of Morris and Seamus Mitchell, you're starting to look at whether they're retained at all. Warple and Wingard have credits in the bank, I think. I think as far as fans are concerned, we would love for them to step up. We need them to. But those other two guys, Morris and Mitchell, it's a very real danger of their opportunity being taken from them.
Now, of the Port Adelaide boys, Impey wasn't there last night because he re-injured his shoulder, I believe. But Wingard, he cannot wait to play with Carl Amon, just talking him up, saying how quick he is, how good his foot skills are. I'm going to enjoy that partnership. I imagine they'll be looking for one another. Wings is very good at being able to look for blokes he likes to kick to, as Mitch Lewis knows.
That's right. So the last couple of minutes we're very much focused on 2023 and who we're excited for. And now, well, we need to actually look at the complexion of 2023 as we move to focus on the fixture. Mate, it wasn't a good read.
Look, I might sound like Rodney Dangerfield, but there's no respect. We get no respect.
There was a little bit about that at the AGM last night.
Absolutely.
There was a question from the audience.
If there was one thing everybody was agreed on, we weren't getting enough respect.
That's true. Yeah, that was unanimous in the room, and the cheers went up when that was the proclamation. And I thought Kennett's response was also fair enough. The first point I have here is the fact that there are no Thursday or Friday night games currently and just one game on Saturday night. Now, Kennett has a point. Our performance translates to primetime games and the big stage, and the performances haven't been there. We're finished 13th on the ladder.
This is the truth for us, but if you're Carlton or if you're Essendon, you're still granted Thursday and Friday night games, even if you are the poorest of poor. You're dreadful to watch, year in, year out. So I would underline his other response, which was the AFL are a law unto themselves, and we really can't do much about it. And they'll just point to our form and go, oh, that's why. But really, we know that's not why, because other people have worse form than us and they get them.
Well, you'll see every single year it's always Richmond, Carlton, the opener. It doesn't matter how either team is going. They'll always have that in the bank. And there are just certain rules for certain teams. I think we understand that as fans. It's funny when Jeff was speaking about the AFL. That was the other thing that very much united the room. And I don't think this was a jab at Gowers. I just thought it was a recognition of the difficulty that we have as a club. When he said, good luck, Andy. If you can get them to be onside, you've done well.
I mean, we've sent that many blokes out of Hawthorn into the AFL upper echelons, and it doesn't really trickle down, Nick. We always get a terrible fixture, even when we're top of the bloody tree. Anyway.
Never really satisfactory, is it? 9 games at the MCG, just the 6 home games. And it's a bit of a drought. Home games at the MCG, round 1, tick. The next one, was round 9.
Bloody hell. And it was dreadful last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we had the last 7 rounds. We had one at the G, is that right?
Yeah, there was a massive drought. I think you're right. It was the back end of the season. And it's just... It makes me annoyed at the AFL. It makes me annoyed at the Tassie partnership in a very selfish way, I must admit. I want to see more games. I want my club to be playing here.
Whatever you're paying your membership for, people just divide it by 6. Let me tell you that right now. That's all they do.
Well, yeah, and our membership just went up. So, it just, none of it really sat right with me. Our first 4 games, at least I was excited by. The fact that we play 4 rivals straight away, I'm fired up for it. Essendon, Sydney, North Melbourne, Geelong, those are some big ticket games, I think.
The last 3, Western Bulldogs, Melbourne Freo, and of course the main thing is we're playing the Dogs twice, we're playing Freo twice, we're playing Melbourne twice, we're playing St Kilda twice, who should have made finals. We're playing North Melbourne twice, and we're playing GWS. Have they been granted a fixture that, would make you weep? Are they going to make finals as well?
We're one of 2 sides to play 2 top 6 teams twice, Melbourne and Freo, the other side being Adelaide. Why this has happened? Oh, it's just a fixture quirk, Tiz. Don't worry about it. Move on.
No, that's not the fixture quirk. The fixture quirk is playing St Kilda twice at Marvel.
That's the other one. We have been royally screwed with that. No, I accept that we have to have a home game at Marvel. That's fine. Whatever. I don't like it, but I see the point. But
give us a bloody interstate side. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Playing St Kilda at their home ground, and it's our home. It's just, there's going to be just slightly less fans for them. That's it. That's the only change. Otherwise, it's basically a home game for St Kilda. It's awful.
And then any games we're probable to really perform well in and probably could possibly win, put them in Tassie.
That's right, yeah. Games in Tassie include Adelaide. The Anzac Day clash is back. I do like it, but again, in a selfish perspective, I really would like more games in Melbourne, please. Adelaide, North Melbourne, we play down there. West Coast, and we've got the Bulldogs towards the end of the year.
Anyway, we'll do a statistical analysis over the fixture, but my first thought was there's a number of 6 and 7 day breaks which lend itself to good rhythm in a young team. They can really focus on being ready every 6 days or every 7 days, which is something that young sides find it hard.
Well, enough about our thoughts on the fixture, mate. There's one guy who couldn't really care less because it's any time, any place, any team, and that is Josh Ward, who we were lucky enough to have some time with and chat on the podcast about the year that was his first year, mind you. I mean, what a whirlwind it probably was for him.
Yeah, I mean, we should have just asked him what he thought of our past episodes. Come to think of it, we should have. What were your favourite moments and all that? But we're too caught up in the fact that he's gone from fan to player, and what a transition that must be.
Not just a player, a guy that Hawthorn fans everywhere have pinned their hopes on now, Tiz. We are in a rebuilding phase. We've cut a lot of experience from the list. Hawthorn fans are going to be looking at Josh Ward and his peers and hoping they're going to be premiership players in the future. There's a lot of responsibility and pressure heaped on these guys. Josh Ward is right in the mix, in the thick of that.
We're very lucky to talk to Ward because he is going to be one of the voices of the footy club for the next decade. And they are building a team around blokes like Josh. And they've got a couple of mates out of his mates, directly from his school, who he's already played with, trying to make the club young and friendly and, we saw it last night, just excited to compete.
Well, with all that being said, let's get to our interview with Josh Ward. We're heading into year 2 with Sam Mitchell at the helm, and there's been plenty of change at the club of late, and that extends, of course, to the midfield. And one key cog in the Hawks engine room has been kind enough to join us this evening, pick 7 in the 2021 National Draft, and a young player showing plenty of promise. Welcome, Josh Ward.
Thanks, Nick. Hey, Tiz. Thanks for having me on. It's a bit of a surreal moment for me as well, actually. I've been a long-time listener of the podcast. I think it was you, Tiz, my dad, met a few years ago and you gave him the card for the podcast, and it's been with us for a lot of drives to school with my dad and my brother over the years. So yeah, it's good to be on.
Nick got those business cards printed pretty early on, didn't you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to say it was a team effort, actually. So, I'll take some props for that as well. That is incredibly surreal. And, pass on thanks to your dad for that one. That's pretty awesome. Now, Josh, you're back at the club now, and prep for season 2023 is underway. The AGM was last night. If that's any indication, Sam appears incredibly enthusiastic about the list and where you guys can go from here. From your position, what's the feeling like around the club?
Yeah, he's enthusiastic. I think we all are. It was for me personally, I loved my year last year. Really enjoyed being around the club, being around such a young group, but also some really great senior leaders as well. And that's just continued coming into this year. I feel like we're all really excited. It's been great to get started, and yeah, Sam's been one of many with his enthusiasm and his drive and leadership. But I think we're all really buying in and really looking forward to where we can go.
Now, from the outside looking in, speaking of that buy-in, it just seems as though there's a very strong culture and connection amongst this group at the moment. A real sense of mateship really shines through for supporters, I think. Do you feel as though that's been a focus of the club over the past year?
Yeah, for sure. Especially early on in pre-season, we have a big focus on sort of getting to know everyone and building our connection as a group, because the stronger you are as a group, the more able you are to, give strong feedback and work to get each other better. But also you just enjoy being around each other and playing footy so much more, because I feel like playing footy with your mates is really what it's all about and what makes us love the game. So yeah, we're a strongly connected group, and we enjoy being around each other and training together and spending time together. So yeah, it's been a big focus, and I think it's working pretty well.
Now, a little while ago, we spoke to Xavier Ellis, another Melbourne Grammar boy, and we were pleased to see you came in with Ned Long and then quickly followed Max Ramsden.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that we're all there together. We've been good mates since about year 9, and if you told us back then that we'd be at Hawthorn training together, obviously we wouldn't have believed you. But they're both going really well, and it's cool to have some of my best mates from school at the club, and along with some really good mates just from the club as well.
It's been well documented that you're a Hawthorn man through and through, but we've noticed that there's a common thread through the club at the moment where Hawthorn seems very fixated on recruiting Hawthorn supporters. What is with that? Is it something you've picked up on?
There's a little Hawthorn supporter contingent at the club. Obviously, we're all Hawthorn supporters now, but we just got Cam McKenzie this year. I think Maury and Jack Scrimshaw as well, big Hawks fans. Max Ramsden as well. There'd be plenty more that I'm forgetting, but yeah, it's pretty interesting how that works out.
Don't we have a photo of Scrimmer at a grand final? Nick, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Scrimmer, I think, is on the fence of the 2013 grand final when Bradley Hill slots his goal and celebrates with the crowd a little bit. That was going to feed into my next question is, Josh, did you get to any of those grand finals in that recent golden era?
I did. I went to 2008 with my dad and a few other family members. The whole family's diehard Hawks fans. Unfortunately, can't remember much of the actual game, which is disappointing because it was probably the best game of the 4. But I've watched the 2008 grand final DVDs. Gets a pretty regular viewing, sort of at least annual thing for us.
What's it like, the transition from fan to Hawthorn draft pick prospect? Because they hid it from you a bit, didn't they? And then finally arriving at the club.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going, that's for sure. They kept their cards pretty close to their chests, the Hawks, and I think that's probably what most recruiters do. But obviously, it was where I wanted to end up, and yeah, it was an amazing feeling when I did get picked up. But then once I got in there and sort of just met everyone and started training, it becomes pretty quickly it's your club and you've got to try and get a game, I guess. Like when you're doing like grueling pre-season sessions, you're not really thinking about how you used to go for them. You're just trying to get through.
For us following the draft coverage, I think it can seem like a big whirlwind process, that first week or two. How do you reflect upon your initial experiences arriving at the club?
Yeah, well, I think these new draftees have at least done better on their first day than I did. I first time I got to the club, drove in by myself, was pretty nervous, as you can imagine, and got out of the car and walked into the club, didn't think anything of it. And then at the end of the day, went back to the car and realised I'd left the keys in the ignition and the car's still on. I just put it in park and got out. So, I could sort of empathise a bit with the nerves of the new draftees, because I was definitely feeling it myself on my first day. But yeah, it is a whirlwind, and yeah, it's a pretty nerve-wracking experience, but you enjoy every minute as well.
We've heard in the past how you get put under someone's wing, so to speak. Someone takes you around the club and they teach you the ways of becoming a professional footballer. Who was that for you?
There were a few. Everyone was so welcoming and took it upon themselves to try and help all us new draftees. But some names in particular, I'd say I stayed with Harry Morrison for a week when I first got there, and he was awesome for me, just answering the many questions that I had, and sort of giving me a glimpse into what it was like to be a professional athlete. James Warple was another one. Caught up with him for a fair few coffees over the year just to debrief what was going on. A lot of the senior players were great, and sort of got me going and went from there.
You're not far off being a senior player yourself now, Josh.
Yeah, it was interesting. I saw a graph today. I think I'm about 26 in terms of how long I've spent at the club. So getting towards halfway there, which is pretty crazy.
And you were picked for the side round one. It's a big tick. How did that feel?
It was a great feeling. It was obviously the goal throughout the whole of pre-season. You want to play round one. I don't think you build it up to be more important than it is. Like round one is just as important as round 2, 3, 4, whatever. But obviously it's a big one you want to play in, and I was thrilled to be able to play in round one.
And never mind round one. A few weeks on, you're back at the MCG. You're not playing North at Tin Pot Club. Who cares, right? You're talking about Easter Monday, Geelong, massive crowd, massive moments. You knock off the team that will eventually become the premiers. And for mine, we're in quite a reflective mood because we're talking about the season that's just gone. That's my favourite win. How did you reflect on that? That was a huge moment for the club, I think.
Yeah, it was massive. I'd be the same as you, Nick. I think that was definitely my favourite moment. Yeah, I think it gave us a lot of confidence, showed us that when we put it all together and play with a lot of effort and, passion and excitement, we can really be a great team. And I love that game. And I remember listening to your podcast after it on a bit of a high. You guys were definitely on a bit of a high after that. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. I went straight back into the city, ready for some comedy festival. Just record on the fly, and that was a wonderful day. My favourite day of the footy this year. It just goes to show that the key to success is just having Mitch Lewis in about 50 metres of space at the end of the game. That's all it takes, guys.
Yeah, that'd be nice if we could get a key forward alone in the 50 every time, but unfortunately it doesn't always work out that way.
I was going to return to round one and just talk about that kick you got away out of defence, and then Big Noodle juggled it and took it.
Yeah, that was cool as well. Yeah, I enjoyed watching that a few times.
And so you 2 wins, 2 and zip after the Port Adelaide game. I mean, you've kicked your first goal. It's a dream start to the year for you.
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate to play the first few games, and we were definitely on a high after that Port Adelaide win. But obviously something Sam says a lot is it's never as good or as bad as it seems, and we sort of came back down to earth, especially against the Saints in round 4. But yeah, like I said before, we know we can, when we put it all together, we can be a really good side, and it's just about consistency and continual development, really.
Now, Josh, there was a stretch this year where you were sidelined, and I think for us fans, because we were so high on you and so excited to see you out there, we were frustrated for you. We really wanted to see you back in action. And I think when a first-year player gets sidelined, it takes a degree of resilience as well to get through that and get back out on the park. How was that time for you?
Yeah, it was frustrating for sure. Obviously, you always want to be playing, and I guess up until that point, I'd had a pretty good run in my career with injuries. I'd had one concussion before, but I hadn't really had to learn to deal with, spending a huge amount of time on the sidelines, and I probably hadn't had the experience to build up a huge amount of resilience. So it was definitely a learning period for me. But I think in the end, it was almost the best thing that could have happened because I was able to sort of reset. Obviously, I was happy to play the first, 7 of the first 8 games, but my performance wasn't great. I wasn't happy with how I'd played, and I felt like once I came back into the side for the last 7 games of the year, I was in a much better place. I was playing with more confidence and had been able to sort of work on my mindset over that period of time I spent off, and I felt like I came back in much better form than how I started, which was good.
How does the club manage that? Because obviously you've got a lot of energy to burn.
Yeah.
You got a lot of nervous energy watching your teammates and that. Do they give you some exercises, or like mental exercises and stuff to keep you thinking about footy, but not pressuring you into trying to get back on the?
Oh yeah, I guess there's a few parts to it. Obviously, you need to get your head right and your body right when you're injured. So there's that part, and then there's things you do to keep engaged. Like I could still train a fair bit. I was involved in team meetings and stuff. So I definitely still felt like I was a part of it. I didn't feel isolated or at a loose end. But yeah, definitely the weeks go by a bit slower when you're injured and not able to participate fully, which was frustrating.
Back at the club now, obviously, and getting into stuff, there are a few players who are, of course, following in your footsteps at the moment, a few draftees who are new on the scene. Could you talk us through your first impressions of these new recruits?
Yeah, they've made a great first impression. I've got one of them, Jack O'Sullivan, staying with me at the moment. So he's from Kyneton, good skills, very athletic and explosive, and he had a pretty disrupted year last season, with a few injuries. So I think, we were lucky he sort of slipped under the radar and got to us. And he's been awesome. Very good to have around, and gotten to know him pretty well. Josh Weddle's been another one who's been pretty impressive. Won the time trial the other day, and his running's been pretty unbelievable. He's been good, and Cam McKenzie and Henry Hustwaite have been training with the mids, and it's been good to have a few boys with some different skills to add to that group. They've both been training well. So those boys have been good. And then Bailey McDonald is just absolute express pace. So he can turn it on when he wants to. And JB, Josh Bennett's, his skills have been on show so far. So it's been great to have all of them there.
Talking to a few people yesterday at the AGM, they're all telling us how quick Bailey is. He must be really fast.
Yeah, he's lightning. We saw a few highlights reels of him playing for Vic Metro, and he just got it at halfback and just absolutely accelerated, burned off his opponent. So that was good to see.
Was that your first AGM?
Yeah, first one. It was good. I enjoyed it. So many passionate supporters, and those are the most diehard members you get, I think, the ones that are at the AGM. So yeah, it was great to see, just the passion and love for the club on full display last night, which was good.
There was a big tick of approval from the coach who speaking to the group and also to the members, said for us to look upon the group and think about there's the core of our next premiership side sitting here tonight. And I thought, wow, that's a massive statement from Sammy to have that much confidence in you guys. Yeah,
it's great that he's got the confidence in us, and I think we believe it ourselves as well. So now I guess it's up to us to leave everything out on the track and do everything we can to get there.
And did you have a reaction when Bob Ketty said he'd been paid $30 each time he played a game, and $15 for the reserves? I thought that there was a couple of blokes that were looking a bit stunned. I saw Frosty look quite stunned, actually.
Different time back then, wasn't it? The most surprising part was how he trained up in Canberra for the Army all week and then came down for home. I just couldn't imagine doing that now.
And then he referred to Percy Ceredy as a nutcase, didn't he? And I was just going to ask, how's Peter Burge? He's new to the club. What's he like?
Yeah, he's been great. He's so professional and knowledgeable. I think every high performance trainer's got a bit of a nutcase in them. But yeah, Burge has been great. He's probably the best of the best, and very lucky to have him smashing us on the training track, which is good.
Smashing you in December. Pretty keen. Josh, what excites you most about this group, do you reckon? What excites you about the club, I suppose?
I'm not sure if I could pinpoint one thing, but I guess just how committed we all are to what we're doing. We all know the direction we're going, and I feel like we do have a core group that can take us where we need to go, and yeah, it's just really exciting to be part of this group.
As we said, we're in a pretty reflective mood for this final episode of the season that we're doing. Any highlight of 2022 that stands out for you, whether it's as a team or maybe for you personally? I mean, we've already touched upon your debut, first goal, but is there anything that sort of springs to mind?
Well, I've already spoken about Easter Monday, so I'll pick a different one. I'd say just the reaction of the boys when we announce a debutant in the team meetings. I think that's always one of the best parts of the week. Like just, yeah, how much everyone cares about each other and wants each other to do well. I think the reaction when, we sort of recognise someone who's worked hard for their spot and is realising their dream, I think, shows what a special group it is. So, yeah, those moments stick out pretty clearly.
I tell you what, Sam's going to lift his game because Beck Goddard, she's been enormously creative with those debutante videos.
There's been some good videos coming out of the AFLW social media team, that's for sure.
When it comes to your own role in the side, how do you see that progressing this year?
Yeah, I want to just become a full-time part of the midfield. So just solidify my role there. I feel like, I've got a variety of skills and strengths, and so just bringing those each week to help us win games is what I want to get out of this year. I think I'll hopefully play a fair bit inside, but also be able to use the ball and play a bit on the wing as well. On the outside will be my go this year, so hopefully it goes well.
Now, I met a big fellow last night, and he sort of snuck up on me because he's a bit quiet, and he's suddenly there. Lloyd Meek, he is a big unit.
He's massive, isn't he? Yeah, really nice guy, Meeky, and it's been great to have him, striding around the gym. He's a big boy.
It's really rejuvenated the midfield, the recruiting team in a very small space of time. It's incredible. It's going to be very exciting next year, Nick.
Well, I have this feeling that the suspicion is that the media looks at Hawthorn like in terms of limitations, whereas I see it as the opposite. I see that there's plenty of fresh faces and it feels like anything's possible. That's my optimistic take on it, but the media loves going the other way with it, unfortunately.
Oh, they always look for the negative, but if you listen to these guys, the positive attitude coming out of the group is tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, we've got such a young midfield, but I feel like that isn't something that should or would hold us back. We've got so many players with different strengths and different skills that they can bring each week. So, really excited to get cracking with all of them and, see what we can do. It's
been very clear as well, and I imagine it's the case for the players too, trying to execute the game plan. It's clear what the idea is, and even under Sam Mitchell in year one of his coaching tenure, that it's clear what he's trying to execute on game day. It's fun for us to watch. It must be, well, fun, but also bloody hard work for you guys too, right?
Oh yeah, it's a game plan that's based a lot around running, but yeah, I mean, I think we'll have a clear idea what we're trying to do, and it just comes down to executing it consistently, which is the process we're in now, trying to just make sure we're all on the same page.
Speaking last night, Sammy views the crowd numbers as feedback in how the game's being played, how it looks, how exciting it is for the fans. I thought that was great to hear from him because Half was pressing him a bit on what do you say, some benchmarks that he wanted to reach for the next year, and I thought that was a great benchmark. Trying to get a big contingent of fans. How What's the atmosphere like?
Yeah, it's amazing playing in front of big crowds. I think we got 60,000 on Easter Monday, which was awesome. But yeah, I mean, playing in front of big crowds is part of the reason, why we enjoy playing, and love seeing the Hawks faithful come out each week, and hopefully the numbers just continue to grow.
We're going to weasel our way back into Thursday and Friday nights, mark my word. Because they haven't announced those fixtures, but we'll get halfway through the season, the AFL will go, all right, okay, you've made your point.
There's only one thing I noticed about the fixture, and that's that you guys can maintain a really good rhythm. It's about 6 or 7 days each time. Apart from that, I hate the Sunday games. But it doesn't matter to you blokes, does it?
No, we'll play whenever, anytime, anywhere. But yeah, it'll be nice to for the fans to get some blockbuster games, hopefully towards the end of the year.
We need to point out that we hung around last night. I know a lot of the boys, they were off like a shot, and fair enough after the AGM.
It did run a bit late, Nick.
It did, well, it did, yeah. We hung around. We got talking to Sam Mitchell, and for a bit of fun, we thought, look, we got this chat with you tonight, Josh, and we thought we might turn it over to Sam to see if he had any ideas of what we could ask you. So he wants to know, who's the smartest player at Hawthorn?
Yeah, I've got to give that to Max Ramsden at the moment. He did pretty well at school. I'll say that, and that's an understatement.
Wow, did he? Okay.
I'd love to not say him because it'll go straight to his head, but
we'll edit this out, won't we, Nick?
Well, I was going to say goes to his head. That's a fair feat. He's a very tall man. That well played though, Josh. Very straight bat, because Sam did happen to mention that you yourself did pretty well at school.
He had his big smirk going. He did.
Yeah, no, it hurts to give Ram that title, I'll be honest.
Well,
I think we should have a shout out to Josh's dad picking up the business card from me, really.
Very much appreciate that turn of events. Josh, I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's been awesome to chat with you, and you're looking forward to the Christmas break. You got stuff planned?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Nothing too much planned. I'll just head off to the beach for a little bit with the family, which will be nice, and then back into it soon, which I'll be looking forward to.
If Melbourne's weather could see itself to climb over about 18 degrees, that'd be wonderful. Thanks so much, Josh. All the best for 2023. We can't wait to see you back in action.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
A delightful young man is Josh Ward, Tiz, and we both very much enjoyed that chat and some insights ahead of the 2023 campaign.
Yeah, and he enjoyed the AGM, Nick. How interesting.
That'll fade. They can't all be as entertaining as the one last night.
No, that's the aim. Very, very boring AGMs.
That's right. Actually, if Josh Ward is bored, you know you're on the right track, actually.
No, he's a delight, isn't he, Wardy? He's enthusiastic. He knew all the new recruits' names. He saw what they were good at. Interesting that he's already taken Jack O'Sullivan under his wing at such a young age. And I can only hope he's feeding him well, because Jack's 72 kilos, and we did see him. He's a little bit slight. So, but yeah, highly skilled young man.
That's on Josh Ward now. He's to step up and be a leader.
Yeah.
Basically. That's the new era at the football club. The world at their feet is. They are shaping the future of the Hawthorn Football Club, and as we talked about with Sam Mitchell, as far as Sam's concerned, the pieces are in place.
Yep.
It's what we do with them from here.
Future is now.
Indeed it is. We need to wrap up what has been a mammoth edition of the Hawk Talk podcast, our final episode for the year. Do we have to talk jumper numbers, or people are over them by now, aren't they?
No, they'll still be news in January, won't they? And we got the statistical fixture analysis. That'll be scintillating stuff. What else?
Are we doing a season guide? Are we coming back in for that, or?
There's this thing called AI now. I feel that could be very useful.
Oh boy, look forward to that. Now, if you're listening to this show via Apple Podcasts and you do have a minute to rate and review our show, we'd really appreciate it. Of course, it makes our day to read that stuff and hear great feedback, but it effectively recommends the show to other diehard Hawkers too. An exciting announcement: you could be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you might be listening to it on Spotify, you may be listening to it on Google Podcasts, Tiz.
I hope you've got some kind of explosion or fireworks or something, because this has taken forever. This is basically the longest project.
Now, listeners might be wondering, why did it take so long? What kind of obstacles did we actually have to overcome to make it work? It was very, very confusing. But I'll tell you this, in layman's terms, we had to burn it down and build it back up again. That's essentially what we did. We had to remove our podcast from Google Podcasts altogether and restart it.
Yeah, it had to find it again. Yep.
But we're there now. So you can find us on Google Podcasts going forward. So that's a massive win for our listeners. We're slowly but surely approaching another milestone over on Twitter. 4,000 followers. Very close to that now. That's our social media HQ, of course. So we'd love to have you over there. Twitter.com/HawkTalkPod. Of course, we're also on Facebook. You can join our Facebook family at facebook.com/HawkTalkPod, and you can find us on Instagram. And finally, as always, we'd like to extend a shout out to our proud, passionate, and paid up Patreon subscribers who have really helped make 2022 a huge year for the Hawk Talk podcast. Your support, subscribers, you make it possible for us to do what we do, and it's very much appreciated. A special thanks here to Richard, Riley, and Tumbleton, who jumped on board recently. Great to have you. For everyone else, if you'd like to support the show by way of $1 or $2 or more, if you like, you can hop onto our Patreon page. Sign up at any tier you like and get some sweet perks in return. All the details are at patreon.com/HawkTalkPod.
And so we head into the off-season for Christmas and New Year's, and we just watch from afar as Peter Burge absolutely tortures these poor blokes on the track.
In keeping with the Christmas spirit.
No, they get a break for a little while, don't they? But if they want a template for success, Jordan Lewis looking like, I don't know, just a mess of water and hair, running up and down Sorrento Beach at about 7 o'clock in the morning on day 2 of 2013, that's the kind of thing that'll bring you success.
Nah, Mitch Lewis is the real example, mate. Pick 76, don't even worry about it. You're looking at the wrong Lewis, I say.
No. One of the great number 3s. It's fantastic.
My expectations around next year, I'm under no illusions that it's about development, but I'm rather looking forward to the footy. I found myself actually on both counts. I want the AFL back, and God, I really want the AFLW back. I'm so excited for both programs.
And we've ended up with tickets to more than one game at Gather Round as a result of your, frustrations in not being able to go to the football. But anyway, that's another story.
The cravings are real, and the Hawk Talk podcast is heading to Adelaide. Not just Norwood either. We are catching a couple more games at Adelaide Oval. I've never been, mate. I had to see the Oval for myself and get amongst it. We are gathering around, gather round.
So that's the first leg. And for the rest of the Australian tour, we are in negotiations.
Yeah, no, I can see it now. A national tour in the Batmobile, or failing that, we'll dig up the hovercraft from yesteryear out at Waverley.
Oh, the hovercraft would be great. We could go by water.
Well, there's Tassie. That's sorted, so it really is a national tour.
You never did want to go on that ferry. Anyway.
Clearly we have a lot to hash out, listeners. There's a lot to talk about in the off-season for the podcast. We will be back once again in 2023. We're going to enjoy a well-earned break, I think, mate. I want to thank you for your year here on the Hawk Talk podcast. It's been a massive one, hugely successful for us. Really fun watching the team, really exciting to see where it goes from here. Merry Christmas, mate, and I'll see you on the other side in 2023.
Merry Christmas to you, Nick, and thank you for all your hard work. I think the listeners know exactly how much you put into this, and I think it's all paying off.
And you, mate, and you. And Merry Christmas, of course, to all of our listeners. Happy holidays. Thank you for joining us this year. When are we going to be back? End of January, probably. I don't know. Look, we'll be hard at work with the season preview and stuff like that anyway. If you're a Patreon subscriber, there might be a bonus ep or two. You just don't know. You've got to sign up. Patreon.com/HawkTalkPod. But for now, happy holidays. Enjoy the break. We'll see you soon. We are a happy team at Hawthorn.